Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion to open the zoning board of appeals meeting.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
It's December 19th. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes of November 21st. Is there such a motion?
I move that we accept the minutes.
Is there a second for that there?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And aye. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn 3050? Community Baptist, is there a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And is it the intent to adjourn 3045, Mr. Bent? Is that your request?
Yes, my apologies to the board. I thought a letter had gone in, so I'll make an oral request to adjourn it until the next meeting.
Okay. Is there a motion to accede to Mr. Bennett's request?
So moved.
Is there
second.
all in favor? Aye. And aye. Is there a motion to adjourn 3065 South Lane?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
And aye. Okay, anything else? We note that,
Did we do the Baptist church?
sorry, 3050, I thought I did, the first one, yeah.
Oh, we did that, okay.
Baptist, I don't know that you did that.
And we note that 3054 and 3055 are withdrawn. Pending decisions, 3056. Is there a motion to accept this
I
decision?
move we
as
accept
written?
the decision as written by our environmental consultant.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And aye.
Merry Christmas, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, John.
Is there a motion to accept the application numbered 3059?
I move we accept the written decision by our environmental consultant.
And I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And aye. Okay. Indeed. These will go in the respective files, please. Pending cases, The Stones, 3036.
Evening. For the application, Gilbert G. Flanagan, 21 South Main Street, Southampton. As you know, this is a continuing application which we discussed at some length at the last meeting. Since the last meeting, we submitted some additional information, and I just want to make sure that's in the record. There was an observation made by your attorney, which is correct, that a labeling on some of the plans needed to be changed to reflect the stucco exterior and the terracotta cap to the wall. It was a thing that it was a change that hadn't been made where it was made elsewhere, so we submitted that. You should have that in the record. I also asked Mr. Turchunian's office, and by the way, he's here this evening, to see whether or not there were any other properties anywhere along the stretch of Meadow Lane from Halsey Neck Lane to the inlet that have a similar wall situation, and this is the only one. This property is the only property along that entire stretch that has a situation like this. So the precedent I would submit is it's about as limited as you can get if you were to decide to act favorably on it. I think those were the only things that you had particularly raised. I know you'd wanted to speak with your consultant to have him look at some of the material we'd submitted, so I'm basically here to answer any questions and to refer anything that I need to Mr. Turchunian.
We're trying to figure out what, given the circumstances, what's fair to your client, considering that the wall came down through no fault of his own.
Correct.
However, the wall in the wetlands, is of a concern environmentally. So the extent of the wall is the concern, and we're wondering if there's some way that your client could agree that the wall in the wetlands, okay, which exceeds
The one that's still standing, you mean the part that's still standing?
essentially
Yeah.
it's still standing, or
Right.
it's, I don't know what state of condition it's in, whether it's jeopardized in any way, but having that wall in the wetlands, seems to be, an environmental concern. So is there some way to say yes to the wall that actually is adjacent to the Hereford's house to the east, and the structures of the Stones house To the east, I'm sorry, and the Hereford to the west.
I'm sorry.
But remove the wall that's in the wetlands.
I'm sorry, that,
But remove the wall that's in the wetlands. In other words,
replace the one that's up to the wetlands, but remove the,
Anything that's
Exactly.
upland, replace. Anything that's in wetlands that's fallen over and is existing, be removed.
that's fallen over, anything that's in the wetlands, I think I'd like to
That
defer
way we
that to...
clean up any wall in the wetlands.
Okay, I'd be happy to have Mr. Tertullian address that, and I appreciate your taking into consideration what was said last time.
Thank you, Aram Tertunian, First Coastal Corporation, West Hampton Beach, on behalf of the applicant. So if I understand, we have a drawing that's in your file. I think it's indicated that there's about 127 feet of wall that's collapsed. About 2/3 of that is in the upland, about 1/3 of that is in the wetland. And then there's an intact section of wall, which is about 60 feet. And so you're talking about removing the intact 60 feet and removing the fallen section that's in the wetland. Well, at first blush, I would say it doesn't really address the concerns that I raised at the last hearing regarding the adverse impacts that are occurring because of the difference between the elevation of the land on the eastern property and the wetland. There's about between the 2 and a 4 foot elevation change. One is, turf, and then there's a section of raw soil, and then there's the wetland. So what you have now is uncontrolled stormwater runoff coming from the turfed area into the wetland, and that runoff is actually eroding the raw soil that's there and putting that in the wetlands as well. So removing that wall would merely exacerbate that situation. I think that would be counter to protecting the wetlands. That would be exposing it to, additional, siltation and runoff over, indefinitely over time.
yeah, that's, if you want to, respond to that, our understanding is that that's an the environmentally right thing to do, which is to let that area go basically to a natural, state. There are no walls in the wetlands throughout, the bayfront there. And what's the purpose of that wall? It's not, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's not protecting any structures of the stones. It's wetlands on their property
Well,
entirely, right? There can't be
Yeah,
anything
Mark,
built
maybe I
there.
can add. I think, based on what Member Greenwald just mentioned, we are looking to help with a solution, and I think it should be holistic. And I did note on page 2 of Aram's report, the wetland impact analysis, there's a statement that says it is likely the wall will eventually collapse along its full length. And so this was discussed on the work session, and one of the concepts was, let's not leave a section of wall that's going to eventually collapse, as you have indicated, and let's, try and come up with a solution that is, it would have to be a compromise. So what was discussed was allowing a wall that would retain the soil up to the point of the wetlands. And I think what Aaron is saying is that there is an area beyond that, to the north of that, where the collapse of the wall has caused sedimentation into the wetlands. So we'd have to think about that area, if it's better to leave it and just plant it, or if it's better to retain that. And so those were some of the discussions. So I think we're looking to, allow a wall certainly up to the wetlands, determine what the best treatment is for the area where it's collapsed and has eroded into the wetlands, and then look for a solution to remove the intact section that will eventually collapse. I think the reason for this is that this would not be permitted under any current wetland permit situation, and we don't really want to introduce a structure or allow a structure to remain that's going to fail and does interfere with and interrupt tidal flow in that area. So we're happy to react to any further proposals you may have, but those were some of the considerations.
Well, I would just put forth that, thank you, Chuck. I would, first of all, the intact section of the wall, clearly the owner has a right and a responsibility to maintain that. Repairs could be done to that to make sure that it doesn't fail. I think that's probably a prudent step that the owner would take. So the fact that it may fail if nothing's done doesn't mean it's going to fail. It means that you need to take prudent maintenance measures to make sure that it doesn't. I think that's number one. Number two, I think that in this particular situation, because it's a boundary wall, it's much different than the normal situations we're dealing with wetlands, because you're literally holding up fill that's on the east side of the wall so that it doesn't spill into the wetlands. So the wall is the smallest, thinnest, least footprint thing that you can put there that achieves that. Now, ordinarily, as we discussed at the previous session, we would provide a buffer zone, and the buffer zone would be sloped and would be vegetated, and that would provide the transition from the upland to the wetland. Here we have an abrupt linear transition as a result of this historic wall being here. We don't have the only way to achieve a slope would be to fill the wetlands in and create a slope, and then you would be filling wetlands, or to go work on someone else's property, which we clearly can't do. That's someone else's property. And the wall is the only alternative that gives us this absolute smallest footprint. It provides a clear, defined line between the upland and the wetland. It accomplishes controlling stormwater runoff, and it eliminates the siltation of the wetlands. I can't think, at least as I stand here today, I can't think of another solution in this confined an area which would achieve a better result than rebuilding the wall that was there.
Was there fill in that portion of we're talking about the northern portion of the property. Was there any fill put there?
On the adjacent property?
Yeah.
I believe so, yeah.
Why? Why would they put fill there?
I believe it was done as part of the reconstruction of that.
I understand. I think they put fill in because they were raising the house and they didn't want to increase the number of steps. But I'm talking about the portion of the wall that's substantially further to the north. So if you have, some evidence that fill was put in there, and that you're retaining the fill, the new fill, that would be good information.
I don't know that there was fill put there. I would have to go, examine it. As I stand here today, I can't tell you one way or the other. But, we really never even addressed the intact section of the wall as part of this application. That's there, and it's... There's a break, right? Some of the wall in the wetlands is not intact, right? That's correct. And there is fill there. In that section that's collapsed, there's definitely fill on the eastern property, on the western property, I'm sorry.
I think that if you didn't rebuild the wall in that wetland section and cleaned up where that wall fell over, there was some soil that migrated onto the Stones property, but I think that if you left it alone and cleaned it up, it would just go back to a natural state now. I don't think any more dirt is going to, or fill is going to migrate towards the Stones property. In other words, what's done is done.
Well, I understand. I think that once it became vegetated, yes, you'd have to vegetate on both sides. As the wall is collapsed, there's bare soil on both sides of the property now. But you still have not dealt with the stormwater runoff issue, and that's a pretty significant issue. I mean, that's something that this board addresses routinely in applications to avoid direct stormwater runoff from turfed areas directly into the wetland. Ordinarily, as I said, accomplished via some type of a buffer. A natural vegetative buffer. We just don't have the space to do it. If we had 10 or 20 feet, we could do that.
I was just asked a question. So also in the wetland impact analysis that Aaron submitted is photograph 2 that shows flow of soil and other debris downhill into wetlands. So there's a small embankment in some areas, and there is a potential for I would say maybe minor further erosion and maybe long-term runoff from the western property to the Stone property. I haven't evaluated that area in detail to determine how much it is and how much a concern it is. I think Dan's point is that if you just leave it, if you remove the collapsed portion of the wall and you leave it, that area will eventually establish an equilibrium, revegetate, and there is a minor impact to the wetlands. And what is the long-term transport of stormwater from the west to the east? I think there is some buffer vegetation on the property to the west. So if we're going to look at that, I want to kind of evaluate that in more detail to see what that potential is. I don't think it's a great impact, but it is something that we do typically.
You know, when that house was reconstructed, which was not that long ago, any of the runoff from the house would have been captured by dry wells. So the only runoff we're talking about is rainwater that would fall on the
Yard.
Yeah. Which is naturally going to flow from the yard to the wetlands.
Either to the north or to the east,
west.
one way or the other.
Exactly. That's my point.
Yes.
I think given the circumstances, we may have to take a further look at this. And listen to what some of what Mr. Voorhees' comments are. So I just think the prudent thing to do at this point would be to adjourn it for all purposes to the next meeting.
Is that your request, sir?
Yes, it is.
Care a motion to adjourn for all purposes? I'm sorry, is there anybody from the public about to speak?
I'd like to know where the
I'm
wetlands...
sorry, you should stand up and introduce yourself, please.
Then I'm the neighbor.
Okay, neighbor.
I'd like to know where the wall is supposed to end, the wetlands. What do you distinguish wetlands? Pardon? The wetlands, where do they start and where do they end? There are different wetlands on his side than on my side. I got some pictures. May I?
Well, these, you may, but usually there's a line drawn by a wetland.
Yeah, yeah. This plan.
Yeah?
Can I
Well, we
show
need
this
8
to anybody?
copies.
Can I show it to anybody?
Well,
It's a plan.
show it. Maybe you could show
Put
it
it
on
on the
camera,
table.
put it on the
The
table.
camera can pick it up and project it.
Ah.
That's, yeah, you're right.
Chick, do we have a recently flagged wetlands?
We do. Yeah, that is on the plans that were submitted.
Is that the one on the board behind you?
Just trying to see which,
I have another picture. Can I put it down?
that's an old plan that was in the file.
That's the plan for the property to the west,
Right.
and it contains a wetlands line on that property, but not on the...
We have this of yours that shows wetlands.
Yes.
Is that an accurate representation?
Yes, it is.
Can I put this one down too?
But what is your point about the wetlands?
The wetlands for me start here. For him, the wetlands start there. Because he lost 1 acre.
You lost an acre.
You can see it on an aerial shot. It used to be the water, to Heddy's Creek. Shinnecock Bay is further out. Heddy's Creek and Taylor's Creek. But you see it on the area photo. And if there is no protection, I'm going to lose my property. If there's no wall, my property is going to go in 10 years, and it's going to look like his.
I don't think the wall would have it.
We don't put walls in wetlands if we
Yeah, in the meantime, by the time they put the wall in, there was no wetland. Mr. Stone and the former owner
Yeah.
let their property go. And I lived there. I'm in a house. He has a garage there.
Right.
I cared, and he let it go, or something.
He has a garage there, as always.
He has a garage
What do you
on.
mean he let it go? He left it sort of
He
natural?
let it deteriorate.
But it's been renovated since then,
The
right?
house has been renovated. I'm not talking about renovation. I'm talking about the land.
Well-
It used, when they built the wall 100 years ago, there was no wetlands. It used to be property like on my side.
Yes, perhaps so.
And it wasn't, it just,
Well, he didn't bulldoze it or anything, it took it natural
Nature,
state, whatever nature did to it.
nature, yeah.
It's not that.
There's
Yeah,
no
but
one
we
here.
have
but
no
he-
jurisdiction
yeah, but-
over nature.
He has nothing there. He only has sand. I have shrubs which keep it in place. The roots keep it in place. I have grass.
Yeah.
Grass roots keep it in place as well.
Yes.
Sand is washing away.
Yes.
Come on, you live on the bay. You know it, Mark. No, I cannot see my... You gave me the allowance to raise my house. I have a plan of my elevation on this map. The house was able to take 7 feet, 5 feet, 3 feet on the wall area. You see the lines on the map. And I wouldn't have raised the house if I see my property floating away. And that's what's going to happen if that wall is going to go. If that rest of the wall is going to go.
Well, your land did not erode because you had bushes and shrubs and things, correct?
Correct.
You still have bushes and shrubs.
You
and
better
things.
believe it. And they see it themselves heavily, yes.
Okay, so what do
Because
you need a wall
there's
for?
soil. There's soil. He doesn't have soil. He has sand only.
Well, where the wall is down, have you been losing land?
Say it again.
There's a wall that's down in the wetland abutting your property. Are you losing land on
The
your
wall
side?
is only down for 1 year.
Yes,
The wall is down, not in the dangerous area right now. The area next to the water is more, where the wall is still standing, that's a more dangerous area, because that's where the water comes in. You see, here's a picture from the water on the other side. There's about this much of water on that wall at high tide.
Can you lay that out where the survey is so we can get that on the camera, please?
I don't know which side or... I mean, did you take a picture of this one here?
I think you could move, okay.
Can you put it right where the survey is? You can move the survey out of the way.
You can't really read it anyway. Oops, okay.
I mean, here you see the wall, and my area, in my soil, and with shrubs, and his is all water. Half of his property is all water. Can I put it next to it?
No, just replace it, please.
Right, so wouldn't his... So his wall is in jeopardy due to that fact of the water, yes?
Yeah, I mean, you see the water, the depths.
Yes.
This is like Heidi's Creek. There's no land, and at high tide, there's no more land. The land stops. I mean, here's a fence there,
Yeah.
and here's some grass. The water comes to his grass,
Yeah.
which is half of his property.
Yeah,
He
but
started off
water's
with
gonna
2
come up on either
acres.
side of the wall.
Ah, there you have
Yeah,
it.
what she's describing is true. It's a natural condition.
Yes,
And as-
absolutely.
As Ms. Herford said before, this is the Herford property, and the wetlands were designated here. This area is fill, and this area had always been occupied by the wall.
Where you lost me. This is the
And on
road
the
here.
Stone property, the wetlands do go back
Oh,
farther,
yes, yes.
farther into the property, farther
Yeah.
into the...
Yeah, you see it on this area photo. I don't want my property to look like his side because I live there. Here's another picture. Here's another picture. Can I take this away?
Sure.
this is my left side is me, and here see is all water. I cannot live with a backyard like this.
But Chick, is the wall,
Yeah, I don't think the wall's going to make a difference. This is actually this is a plan. This is a plan that we had in the file when the Hereford property was approved. It's very similar to the one that she showed before. It's a little easier to read the contour lines, and this is
Yeah,
where the fill
yeah.
was allowed, and it went
Exactly.
down to the wall.
Exactly.
And in part, the pressure of that did cause the wall to collapse, but the rest of the property is still graded, as you said before, Dan, toward the bay, toward the east and toward the north.
The rest of which property?
It's natural grade
Your
there.
property. Well,
Yeah,
it's
the rest
it's
is
the
fine,
created
until here.
grade when they elevated the house and put the soil
Right,
around it.
but not all the way to the
See the
water,
contour.
just,
Right.
there's a measurement there that shows you how far back that
Correct.
flow went,
Yes, yes. So I don't think the wall really affects it one way or the other. As Ms. Herford said, there are plantings on the property.
Yeah, you see it on
And the
the-
property slopes off, and the wetlands are established, and I think that'll just stay as it is.
I'm her daughter. I also just want to reiterate that point. I feel like this, that image that you just had kind of really shows the difference. Where's the one that you just had? Or
I think that one.
is it this one?
This
Sorry, the
shows
difference in the difference in the water line. How the green came up all the way almost.
Yeah, this one.
Sorry, just turn the other way around. Do you see how much more green there is? Like if you look exactly where the wall has fallen, which is this red part, you look over onto his property and it's water. This is all like 1 foot lower than the road. There's water here. If we don't rebuild the wall, our property
It's going to go.
be like
It's
this
going
in
to
the
go.
future. Not only up here, but especially down here, where we have shrubs, but how that wall will eventually crumble.
And the water is rising. It's going to get higher in 10, 20
The
years.
shrubs are not going to do enough. This is consistently every day, 1 foot plus below water. I went out and I measured it, and it was 17 inches.
On this
I was
side.
standing in water at the foot of this wall. We have to rebuild this wall, because otherwise we will look like this too.
Absolutely.
Like,
Absolutely.
it's unacceptable if
No.
you guys let us, like, our
Raise the
property,
house
just
and then
like
you take
let
it away
nature
from us?
take it.
No.
How is that okay for you guys to let us do that?
We are not taking away your property.
Nature.
But you have to let us protect it.
In the meantime, the wall helped us protecting it. And now we are not able to, if he wouldn't have let his property deteriorate, taken away by nature, the wall wouldn't have fallen.
How is he going to do that with the rising waters?
If he would have had lawns there, shrubs there, like I have. I didn't do anything for many years. I just did it now. But you see the kind of shrubs I have because I have soil. Did you take this picture here? I have soil. I have soil where shrubs can grow, not in sand.
Yes. Well, you're donating soil to him now.
I'm not intending to.
Yeah, right, but he could plant shrubs and all that good soil you're sending him.
No, I'm not going to. I don't want to. I want to I put enough money in my house in order to raise it. I wasn't allowed to move the house because you told me I needed the same footprint. I would have been happy to do something different. You didn't let me. And now you make me losing it? The soil? That cannot be.
Wouldn't let you do what?
Lose my property.
So
You
Chick,
raised your house up.
I
Chick,
raised
if I
my house.
understand it,
What
Yeah,
did
but
you want to do
what
with it
she's saying is that
besides
that wall is preventing
I
bay
want
water.
that wall to
One-
come back
one at
to
a
keep
time.
my property in line. My soil is going to slide down when
I'm
when
talking about
the
your
water.
house. If you hadn't raised the house, would you do something else now, something different?
If I wouldn't have raised the house would have been washed
All right.
away.
So you're happy that you raised the house, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but I live there. For him, it's a garage. I want to have my backyard. I don't want to go down and be in the water. Like,
What about all the other land all the way down Meadow Lane? They don't have this kind of a wall. This is the only wall on the Old Meadow Lane,
You mean on the bayside?
in the basin.
They're on stilts. Many of houses are much higher.
Yeah, but you've raised the grade,
You raised your house.
I raised my house.
and you've
because-
raised the grade on the property.
That's right. Yeah, but I want, but
Your
my
house is protected
wetlands,
by that now.
But they also have a wall around their house if you go further down Meadow Lane. Like a lot of houses have like a cement wall
I
on
like to
stilts.
know
We don't
what
have
you mean
anything.
by there's a wetlands as opposed to.
You mean under the
that
house?
wall. Yeah, but nobody's going to tell me that.
Around the house. They're on stilts,
I
they've
haven't
raised the
gotten-
house, and then
gotten
there's
to
like a
that.
cement wall around the property.
A berm for septic or something
Well,
like that?
sometimes it's the septic systems, yeah.
Not around the whole houses. No other houses on Dune Road have walls going down into the water.
On the roadside, at least, is from what I can see.
They're probably raised up for
Raised up for the septic system. But your house might not have needed a wall because it was high enough that it didn't need the walls.
Except I like to keep my property because
But we
I
have
got,
nothing keeping that, we have upland where he doesn't. We need to protect that upland.
he's right on the wetlands.
Why are you guys making it so difficult for us
No.
to protect our
No,
upland?
I'm not going to let my property deteriorate like his side.
And I'd like to show this picture. This is what I was trying to say, where it was, I waited out there all the way to the end, and it was, sorry. This is like a high water mark. Do you see that? 17
That's
inches.
a tree, right?
Sorry?
Is that the end of the wall?
That's the end of the
Or is
wall.
that the end of the wall?
So there's
That's the
water
end
on
of the
both
wall,
sides of the
Kevin,
wall.
yeah.
Yes, that's the
I'm
last tip.
trying to say that every
Yeah.
day at high tide, the water is eating this wall, because this is what it looks like. There's crumbling, and it will fall.
Has fallen. Part of it
Yes.
has fallen.
And the rest
Part
of
of
it
it
is going to
has
fall.
fallen,
rest
and the
of it's
rest of
gonna
it,
So we're saying, get it out of there before it does fall, while they're
get
repairing
it out?
do you
this
know?
wall.
I
Take
need that wall.
Take all the
There's- but
bad
there's
water and wetlands away.
I'm not going to have no walls there, then I'm really going to go.
there's 17
No.
inches of water that every day is going to come and eat away at our soil, at our upland soil.
You live on the water. It's,
I live underwater, but I have a right to protect my property, sir. I have shrubs there, which I have roots and I have grass, and that keeps my soil in place, but not when you see his side.
We're making a
He wants the
pleading.
wall to protect himself from you.
That's a joke.
and you
My
want the
storm
wall to
water
protect
runoff, I
yourself
have
from
no
him.
idea how I can flood him. His flooding is coming from there.
It's not flooding, it's silting or.
Yes, whatever you call it, whatever you
And
call it.
stormwater, they're arguing.
But it's the ocean is rising, which we all know, and it's 17 inches. And it's flooding until half of his property. It's these kind of.
But we're in a bad position because it is our duty, in a sense, to protect the wetlands. Not to
Yeah, how
build-
do I
not to
protect my
build-
property then?
Not to
If
build
it-
walls in the wetlands, that's the
Okay, it's
problem.
fine.
But it's been there for 100 years.
It wasn't wetlands when they
it's
built
falling
it.
down.
So can we at least stabilize the wall that is still there?
You apparently have the right to repair a wall, even if it's in the wetland. Is that your argument?
Yes,
They
Ah.
can repair the wall, and perhaps they have an intention to do that.
Good.
The
So
wall that's standing,
can we, what about the wall that cracked? Can we lift up that piece and stabilize that? Would that count as okay?
repair? That's a good question.
What was that?
No, I don't think because of the footings and the way the wall is constructed, it would just fall over again.
But technically, part of it is still footed there. Why can't we just lift it up?
This means you intend to.
If we're going to think
I don't-
creative outside of the box in terms of solving this problem.
What do you intend to do? I didn't get it.
Let's
intend-
lift up the old wall. I don't know. Let's repair it. Let's
Wants to
repair the entire wall.
Lifting it up, I don't know.
What you intend to do with the wall? We need a wall where the wall is still standing, because that is protecting me from if there are waves, northeasterner.
Right.
Otherwise, my tip is going to look like him. Can I put it down
So
again?
some of this affects your area that is not wetland. Why don't you build a wall on your side?
Am I allowed to build a wall on my
Not
side?
in the wetland, but
But I don't know what you distinguish. Where is wetland stopping? Adam, you took a. the reading here of my contract.
You just,
Can I see where my
so are we
wetlands
saying it's okay to build a wall on this?
Can you show me on this map? It came from you.
It's right here. It's right here.
I don't know that. Why don't
Where
we-
is it okay to build a wall? and where
I
is
don't
it
know.
not?
That I can.
We should just have a chance to talk.
Yeah, I don't know. I like to see it on this map.
We really should have topographical of showing you what the grade is. Yeah, we don't know. You know,
Please
they're
address,
on the map, but it's-
please address the board,
That
ma'am.
protects the house.
Please address the board, not here.
You suggested that we build a wall. Where are you suggesting
I'm
we
not
build a wall?
suggesting it. I'm wondering if it's possible.
I need a wall.
But you guys are
I
the
need
ones
a
that are
wall.
empowered to grant
Well, you
this.
can't build it on the wetland, I know that.
No, where's the
You have
wetland?
How are you defining as
I like
wetland
to know
here?
where my wetland is.
There's a line,
It's on
Mr.
that green sheet.
Yeah, so the green is wetland and the white isn't?
Yes.
I like to see it on this map.
Green is wetlands.
No,
But right now the wall is one side wetland, you could argue, and one side not.
Right.
So-
You made that argument, or somebody did, that part of your land is not, it's not the same parallel as the stone wetland. You have more upland, correct?
We have more upland, yes.
Yeah. Well, do something with your upland, maybe. I
But
don't
part of
know.
that may be due to the fill that was put in there.
do what? I'm sorry.
Well, if it's there, it's a fact. Whatever's there is a fact.
I didn't put fill in this area. It was like this for a long time. I have
Did you put
shrubs.
fill? You
What?
put fill somewhere, didn't you?
I put fill against the house, yes.
But not down by
Not down on the edge of the water.
the north side.
Not on the north side, no. Did you put it around the house when you raised the house up?
Yes, naturally, yes, what you allowed me to do.
And part of that fill is what's knocked down the wall.
I would say age knocked it down, and water.
Oh,
Every
age,
day,
yeah.
17 inches of
It's old,
water.
it's 100 years old, right?
It's age, crumbling on
The
his
same case was brought before this board a month ago, and the adjoining homeowner made the argument that it was in fact the fill that had forced the wall down. You were here and made no comment
to fill.
at that time. So
She did make a comment, I watched the video.
we were here, and the conversation at that time, we're
It
not
was age,
hearing
it wasn't-
both sides at the same time, which is going to keep this going in a circle.
Okay, the wall has reached its life expectancy. This is just, this is everywhere. These crumbles are everywhere. Have you guys been out to see the wall?
Yeah.
Have-
Have you seen how the stucco is crumbling?
Not out at the water end, no.
Okay, but
You haven't seen, you only saw it on my side, not on his side.
I don't have 17-inch boots.
Right.
So.
Barefoot in the summertime.
and we don't want to have to use them either to get
In
to
the
the end of our
summertime,
property
it's nice to go there in the
in a
summertime.
few years.
Yeah, but my side is intact. There's no crumbling on my side. The crumbling is on his side.
Right.
The
So
terrain.
you need something to protect yourself from him. Maybe.
Not from him, just to keep our upland upland.
I have a question for Chick.
Yes.
We don't have a topographical, so it's very hard, you know, we have conjecture, but where I see all the white in here, is it white because that's upland and it's a higher elevation than this side?
Yeah, this plan that we had in the file from the Hereford property does show topographic information. And so here's the house, here are the contours that were changed with fill, and the rest of the property to the north just remained at the previous grade.
So is that grade the same on both sides of the wall?
It appears to me as though it is higher on the Hereford side and lower on the Stone
This is
side.
not 17
Why
inches.
didn't that
you
knock
see.
the wall over? Because that's what knocked the wall over further up, the fill against the wall.
Well, no conditions were changed there. The conditions were changed next to the house, and that's where the fill was next to the wall, and appears to have caused it to collapse.
So if you took the wall out all the way into the water, and the grade is higher on her side, will then the grade eventually just adjust, and will then she lose upland?
It's hard to say. The wall may have some retention that I would say decreases as the grade decreases toward the water. It may have some minor retention factor between the east and west side. But I think we have to keep this in perspective. We have a permit pending to rebuild the wall where it's collapsed. We don't have any permit pending for activity to
Right.
the existing section of the wall. And I
Okay.
think we should stay focused on what's pending in front of the board. And if the owner to the west, if the Herefords want to do something in the future, they would have to come in and submit a permit as well, if that's what they intend to do. But we don't have anything pending for that
You
northern
have a
section.
permit pending for this part.
Correct.
Is it going to come through, or is it's in denial? No?
The board is concerned about constructing and reconstructing structural walls in the wetland area. So one of the proposals that was discussed earlier was to rebuild a portion of the wall to retain the soil and have it be more, minimal, have it be a less of a structure. We're looking to minimize the structural improvements that are done in and near the wetlands, and that's what we're wrestling with.
What does that mean, less of a structure? I just don't understand.
Well, the wall would not be permitted under current conditions. It's just, we would never permit a wall going into the wetlands the way it is now. So we're trying to deal with the situation where it has collapsed and retain the soil with the minimum amount of disturbance and the minimum amount of structure. We haven't come to a resolution yet.
Right.
But there is a permit pending.
There's a permit pending for that activity to rebuild the collapsed portion of the wall.
Yeah, and is it going to, which way is it going, do we know?
We don't know at this
No.
time.
And what
It's
about
still-
repairing? Can we talk about, is that a?
That's really a separate matter at this
Okay.
point.
Yeah, but my property is going to flood. But my soil is going to go to, the ocean is rising, which I'm sure you know.
How is your land doing to the north? Not just to the east? How is it doing to the north?
To the north, but I'm sorry.
The bay side, the water side?
Oh, it's fine. I have a picture here. I'd like to show it to
So-
you. I mean, you see it on this very, very well. But you see it better here than over there. Shall I put it down again?
So you're only eroding to the east, or that's your fear?
Correct.
anyway.
Correct.
Not to the north?
Correct, because this area to the, it is more steep. It is steeper. It's only 24 feet, you remember? 7 feet up to fill, and 24 feet to bring it down to 3.
There's a gradient that goes out into the bay, but if you take away the wall and that last part of the wall falls, it's like, it's like 3 feet down. That become,
3 feet down to the east?
right, that will eat away that upland.
That's the problem I'm having with walls. If you have a wall, it seems to create a problem.
Yep.
Nature can't do what it wants to do naturally, that's...
I see picture is not there anymore.
But it hasn't been doing it for the past 100 years,
Because of the
you
wall.
could argue. But we have that footprint, why can't we keep it?
And this water in this area has gotten higher. It was minor a few years ago. But now he has 17 inches on the wall. And this is at every high tide. You got so much water, and this is my side with the bushes. And I cannot keep my
So give us a chance to talk with our environmental consultant. You're presenting this from a different angle entirely, okay? Initially, what was presented at the last meeting was that to the extent that the addition of fill created, a problem for the wall, deteriorated the wall, the board
No,
was sympathetic.
H wasn't part of it?
No, that was not,
Must be careful.
well, it just wasn't part of the discussion previously.
H,
To the
didn't know
extent,
the H?
to the
It
ex-
wasn't really part of the discussion, at least in the
No,
floor.
they didn't want to talk about it because they wanted to blame it on me. Because my insurance company paid for it, $340,000. That's
Well,
why
if they're willing to pay for it, it must have been some fault from your property.
there must have been a fault.
Must have been the fill.
They don't like to
Must
pay for things.
I know. The kind of, I was surprised they did. I was surprised. But I cannot have my property looking like this in 10 years, with my soil washing away and my only sand in my bushes. You cannot let that happen. I mean, you see bushes, it's all green here, and this is his side.
Problem is, in 10 years, the other section will fall over, and it's going to do what it's going to want to do anyway.
Probably so.
No, but you had pilings proposed.
We don't really want to put pilings in the wetland, I don't think.
Yeah, but there was a wall, but there was no wetlands.
The wall was not adequate for rising waters, I guess, either. It was either the fill or the rising waters or both.
The water is certainly rising, we know it.
Okay.
So it's not the wall that's the problem, it's how invasive the wall is, so a more minimally invasive wall or repairing the existing footprint? Is that what I'm hearing, that would be more acceptable to you?
I don't know how, well, we don't want a wall in the wetland is first premise. And something that's less invasive, I don't know. Plus, we have to watch out for the entire bay. You don't know if this goes through and they build a wall in there. Is everyone going to want a wall? And then what happens to the entire bay side? I don't know.
It's only like 5 feet into the, into the bay. It's not like a large amount into the bay. It's not like jutting out like a pier.
Well, at what point is the wetland the bay? And at high tide, maybe that land is the bay. I don't know.
Not my land, his land.
His land, not your land.
Yeah, but how can you make me lose all my land?
I can't make you lose all
You
your
do,
land.
by preventing that wall, because the water is gone. In 10 years, of ocean rises a foot. I've seen it happening. And I'm going to lose my soil.
If the water rises, what will it do to the wall? If we extend the wall, or we permit it to be repaired, what will the rising water do to the wall? It's going to eat away at the foundation of the wall. We're going to be back to square one.
I have no idea. The wall lasted 100 years, but I guess the water is rising, that's why it rose.
I don't think any wall now in that property is going to last 100 years.
We'll stabilize it, and one side will be upland.
Ma'am, please step up if you're gonna speak. Please step up so you're on camera. Thank you.
So we catch it in a minute.
But
I'm just trying to say, if we stabilize that last portion, then it'll be secure for the next 100 years, and it'll be upland for one, and hopefully it'll be some wetlands on one side, but at least it'll be.
Last 100 years this time.
No, it's not going to 100
Do you think
years,
that you've
definitely not.
lost land over the past years, even with the wall?
I'm sorry, say it again.
Has the amount of upland on your property decreased over the past 20 years with the wall?
No.
Not at all?
No, not at all, because I got bushes, and I used to have lawn. Before I raised my house, I had lawn to the bushes, to the edge of the bushes. No, it did not increase, not
What happened to the lawn?
It was deteriorated during the lifting. But then the bushes grew themselves.
Right.
There were activities going on the lawn I lost, but then I filled the lawn in towards the house. And the last part I left, and the bushes are still there. But the bushes are good because they keep the soil intact.
Did the property always flood?
Yes, it flooded 20 years ago. It flooded only a little bit. And then it came into the house at Sandy. Yeah. Yes, it always was flooding.
His property or yours?
Mine.
Yours
But
flooded.
very little.
Yes.
On the lawn. I lost my lawn, I lost my Montauk daisies.
Well, that's why you raised your house, right?
Yes.
Correct. And I even raised a little bit because I used to have Montauk daisies on the wall. And they died too. The salt water killed them too. And I put a little bit fill there, little soil, in order to keep I'm allowed to have a Montauk daisy. But I had no choice. I put something in a little edge. No, now, I mean, it was hard enough for me to raise that house. It was difficult enough, and now I have it up, and now, no. I need some protection from that side. The northern side is fine, because there is this beach grass or whatever.
Northern side is fine.
The northern side is fine. It's like on the picture over there. It's perfect. It's fine. I don't worry about that. But I worry about that. And that has to be dealt with,
The eastern portion.
the eastern portion. I mean, you see the tip of the wall is reaching a little bit, is water on either side. It used to be upland a little 3 more feet into the water. On my side as well, I lost 3 feet on that side. But on his side, he lost an acre.
Yeah, well, why don't you give us a chance to talk with our environmental consultant, and then we
Yeah.
can...
No, I'm happy,
this.
but again, I don't raise my house for 10 years. I don't spend millions in there for raising a house for 10 years. And then if he would have done something with keeping his wall in order, it wouldn't have fallen, and prepared it. Repaired.
Ma'am, please, we need you to submit those pictures, and if you could also submit 8 copies of them to the board tomorrow, or early next week, please, so that they're properly in the record.
Can we email them to you?
They prefer hard copies, please. So,
I'm not going to be.
8,
8 copies of everything.
I'm not going to be here.
yes,
When is the next
When
meeting?
is that?
January.
I mean, some of the copies we might not need all of them.
I don't know if you can
I think you need to submit what you presented.
These ones.
Right, what you presented needs to be kept in the record. So you need to submit 8 copies of that to the board's office so that all the board members will have it.
Anybody else on the floor want to speak to this application? Mr. Flanagan,
I
would
did
you
make a
like
request
to
initially for an
reintroduce your
adjournment. Right, I just wanted to say a couple of things that, someone made the statement that we're really talking about the section of the wall that's failed. That's true. If the section of the wall that's intact, if something needs to be done with that over and above normal maintenance and repair, which we'd be allowed to do, we'd have to come back to you. So maybe we shouldn't address that at this time. That's one way of approaching it. I think somebody mentioned that. Let's focus on the applications before us. The other thing you've got to remember is that this wall does have a history. It does predate any regulations that related to anything along the water, and that makes it truly unique, as we've demonstrated. So I think that's really important that you consider that. One of the things that Mr. Chichunin and I have discussed is that perhaps a more detailed topographic analysis in that affected area might be helpful.
on both sides of the wall.
If we can do it, we can certainly do it on our side of the wall. I don't know if we can do it on the other side. We'd need Mrs. Herford's
It would be
permission to do
good,
that.
it would be good, we would like topographical information on your side of the wall.
Can you tell me what went down?
No. No.
No, you can tell
No,
me.
we're moving on.
Okay, so that's...
And I can add to that, I've been comparing the two, and unfortunately, there are 2 different scales. One is 1 inch equals 40 feet, one is 1 inch equals 30 feet. There is topographic information on 2 different surveys that we have, and it does appear that toward the northern end of the wall, even beyond the wall, the elevation is about 3 feet on the Hereford side.
No, submit
and
that,
down
ma'am.
between 0 and 1 foot on the stone side. So, there are topographic differences, but they actually go beyond where the wall ends. So I was just speaking with the applicant's consultant, and I think it would be good to have that topographic information merged so that we can understand what's going on there and look to come to some resolution here.
But then that sounds like even without a wall, the grade is maintaining itself.
That's the way it looks to me, based on 2 different surveys, 2 different scales, 2 different time periods in our files.
On the north
So I
side.
like the idea of merging that information and evaluating it.
All right. Anybody else from the floor, board? Mr. Flanagan, do you want us to entertain your motion?
Please.
Is there a
Move we
motion?
adjourn this application for all purposes.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And aye. Okay, here's some pictures, folks. You want to look at them? I don't know. Where do they go? Actually, I guess they go here. Is that, these are the file?
Yes.
Yeah, they don't go in the file.
Rob, I think somebody in the audience may not be aware that Meredith Joyce was adjourned.
Okay. Is everyone aware that 3045 Meredith Joyce was adjourned?
I'm Elizabeth Joyce.
It was
It's
adjourned.
adjourned.
Pardon me?
It's adjourned.
Yeah,
It's adjourned.
I just wanted, because it wasn't written down, I wanted you to know.
Okay.
I saw you.
Sorry.
I figured you were
Oh,
here for
that's all right. It's
that.
great seeing you all anyway. Merry Christmas. Happy holiday.
Okay.
Just thought I'd come by to get one.
New cases. 3060 Lambert NY LLC.
Name's Eric Dantes for the applicant. I have green cards. Some didn't come back, those are the receipts. One was to Europe, so they don't do a green card, they do a certification. It's in there. Yep, I got those.
Probably the narrows in the back.
DANTES. Mailing posting.
Keep throwing at us.
I don't know. I guess he's working his way around.
Hold it up here.
Want the survey with the elevation on the table or anything like that?
So we can get one.
Sir, what did you do? What did you dump over here?
Basically supplementary materials. It's got,
8 of them?
yes, there were 8, but I passed total, yes.
Here's more. Here's this.
Where's the stamp? Where's the stamp?
Spanish stamp on these.
On the front? Is there a stamp on the front?
Have a copy of this.
Whichever way you want. Pardon?
I'm looking for the agenda.
The agenda.
That's this one. What would you like? Right there. Applicant requests a variance relief from table 116-11.1C, table of yard regulations, to build an accessory garage with a side yard setback of 11.8 feet from the eastern and western property lines, where the code requires a minimum side yard setback of 15. Subject lot, it's an oddly shaped, pre-existing non-conforming 21,297 square foot lot located in the R12.5 zoning district. Lot has 54.94 feet bordering Tolsom Lane, and then it runs 448.35 feet in depth, so it's a long, narrow lot, and it gets narrower the further you get towards the back. There is a 2-story house with porch and deck, a pool, and another 2-story house with brick patio on the property. There's also a shed. After going through the balancing test, starting with character of the neighborhood, granted the variance will not produce an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties. Neighborhood is an older residential neighborhood consisting of single-family homes, accessory structures with Side yard setbacks of less than 15 feet are common in this neighborhood. I have an aerial view attached as well as surveys of some neighboring properties. Accessory garages are characteristic of this neighborhood, and this garage will not be visible from the street. If you go to the photo in the back, you can see the house, and then the garage is set back close to 400 feet from Folsom Lane. As far as code-conforming design alternatives, there aren't any due to the way the property shapes to the back. At the rear, it's only 34 feet wide, so to get two 15-foot setbacks, we'd end up with a 4-foot garage. And my client is requesting a 12-foot garage. It's kind of the minimum size you can build to put a car in it. The existing house is located in the widest part of the property, and the pool is located in the widest part of the property, and those do conform to code. As far as substantiality, the variance requested is not substantial, representing 21% relief from the code. Parcel is long and narrow, and the proposed garage is centered on the parcel. 11.8-foot side yard setback is the minimum variance relief needed in order for the applicant to build a one-car garage.
Centered on one aspect of the parcel.
Pardon?
Centered on one aspect of the parcel. Parcel goes longitudinally as well. It's not.
It's centered on, yeah, it's centered on the side yard to side yard. Yes, sir. Applicant's lot is larger than the average size lot in this neighborhood, and the size of the lot at 21,297 square feet creates the requirement for the 15-foot side yard setback. If the lot was 1,297 square feet less, then he wouldn't be here and he wouldn't need the area variance. There are not any adverse impacts on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood. Proposed accessory garage is hidden from the street by the house, and it's hidden from neighbors by vegetative screening. And it will only be used for storage. It's not going to be used for living space. He's going to keep his car there. There's no one living there. It's not a pool house. It's a limited use structure. Difficulty is not self-created. The property is pre-existing lot that was created before current zoning was in effect, and the creation of the zoning district as well as the bulk schedule requiring with the lot size requirements create the difficulty. The benefit to the property owner is the grant of the variance will provide a substantial benefit, allowing him to store his car, and it creates additional storage. And in conclusion, the grant of the variance as requested is the minimum action necessary and adequate to enable the applicant to enjoy the benefit of an accessory garage while preserving and protecting the character of the neighborhood and its health, safety, and welfare of the community. Also, I have a list of surveys with accessory structures that have less than 15-foot side yard setbacks. On 34 Post Lane, the neighbor directly to the west, he has an accessory garage 4.9 feet from his side yard line. 28 Post Lane, the neighbor directly to the north, has a 1/2-story cottage 9 feet from the side yard lot line. 127 Tolson Lane has a block garage 1/2 foot from the side yard line, and 121 Tolson Lane has a garage 10.6 feet from the side yard line. I have the surveys as well. And then in the back is the Google aerial view. You'll see the neighborhood. And further, I have a letter from Mark Shapiro, who's the neighbor directly to the north, saying that he doesn't have a problem with the garage. And Federico Von Sandy, who's my client's brother, lives directly to the west. He forwarded me the email from Mark Shapiro that he doesn't have a problem with the garage, but he didn't write it down himself. But I'm assuming he doesn't have a problem.
His brother.
Yeah.
Part of our responsibility is to make things as conforming as possible. We can't do that to make them less non-conforming. If you move that garage to the north, it increases the amount of relief you need.
We did look at that, and it wasn't that much. I think you can get a couple inches. The closer you get to the two-story house, because you need the room to turn, because you got to be able to move the car over and then pull straight in. I can't pull in from the side because you don't have the turning radius on the car. So
the way you have it here, you can't turn around. There's no turnaround there.
How can it be harder when it's wider?
It's not that much wider is what I'm saying.
Right.
It's wider.
But it is wider.
It's slightly wider, but I mean, the benefit you'll get, the variance relief requested it'll be minimal.
We would like to know that.
This is what, why is it so far from the house? How many feet is it from that second-story house? Second
I don't
story.
know, but I can get the information
I
for
mean,
you.
why is it, well, just just for fun, why is it so far away? I
Because
mean, it has to be hundreds of feet, a few hundred feet, right?
More than 100 feet.
Trying to get in his steps?
Hold on, no. Let me calculate, I can kind of calculate it, because it's 189 and then 257.
I imagine he's not here in the winter, is that right?
No. He lives in London. The answer, I think, is because he rents the house out for part of the year because he lives in London full-time, and the car is just something that he uses personally. So it would be
See?
when he's not, I mean, it's storage, that's the idea behind the garage.
Okay, so it's long-term storage, it's not an in-and-out garage, really?
That's the idea, yes.
When he's here, it's in that garage.
He doesn't use it.
Pardon, when he's here?
I mean,
Car.
when he's here, he uses one of these houses, he stays on his property.
Yep.
And that's when it's in that garage. If he's here for the summer months, he's using
Yep, and it's
garage.
I think it's an older, it's a 1970 Land Rover or something like that he has, so it's,
Does he park it in front, maybe, in the summer?
yeah.
I don't know what he does day to
He's
day, to
got
be honest with you.
stone parking in front of the main house.
All right, anyway, we noticed that was kind of odd.
The other thing is that, there's no turnaround, so he's got to back this car like 300 feet to get out of his property.
That's something we're going to have to,
And if you move the garage forward, you might be able to pave in front of the garage to be able to have a turnaround. Because it gets a little bit wider.
And is this driveway pervious, or
pervious, yes. It's not going to be asphalt.
is it marked that way?
It's just marked proposed driveway.
Is that a non-conforming shed?
Pardon?
Would they get rid of that non-conforming shed?
No, the pool equipment's in there. I mean,
You
that's-
move the shed to a conforming location.
then I'd have
It's
to-
right on
then
the
I'd have to-
property line.
Then I'd have to retrench all, and he'd have to move all his pool equipment to do that. I mean, the shed does have legal status, I believe.
Shed has what?
It has legal status, it's been there forever.
Yeah, but it's still non-conforming.
I understand that,
We try to get things more conforming.
right, I understand what you're saying, but I mean, the pool equipment's it's all piped to it, to do that, you'd have to repipe the whole swimming pool, I mean, it's a big deal.
Why did they put the pool equipment so far away from the pool? Didn't make any sense.
They like to walk around.
I don't know the answer to the question.
Any questions from the board? Any further
No,
questions?
we'd like to, also have the plan submitted. I guess it's just an empty space, but it would be nice to have that. The garage is just an empty space. Some people put other things in the garage. We'd like to see
You should have a
something on
copy of that,
record.
don't you?
There is,
I didn't
It should have been in the initial, when I filed the initial application, there should have been a set of elevations.
I didn't see.
there are elevations or whatever.
I didn't see it in my pocket.
I can give them another.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have it. So I wonder what's better, backing in when you leave or backing in when you come back?
Either way, as it is now, you're gonna be doing a lot of backing.
I would like to see the garage move forward with a turnaround, a wide,
Yeah.
to be
up
able
where
to
it's a little bit
three-point.
wider.
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of dangerous to be backing up past the house, past the swimming pool, past another house. It's,
It's less than 16 feet high.
Did he think he was going to lose the vista of the yard?
That's part of it, I believe, yes. As far as the turnaround, we can make the driveway wider to accommodate a turnaround. I mean,
you can back out of the garage and make a three-point turn
Yeah.
to go out forward. You need 25 feet for that. At 34 at the back, you must have 40 feet if you move the garage forward, so it appears that
right, I mean, I can't, and
Most of
then,
that.
and then behind the two-story frame house is the septic system, so I'm kind of limited there. And you don't,
Where's the septic system?
behind the brick patio, between the brick patio and the
Where it
shed.
says concrete
You don't have to
covered?
go that far.
Yeah, you don't have to go that far, maybe.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
and
you could stay in front of that.
Move it up where the curb is in the driveway.
curb in the driveway.
Yeah, a little bit south of the shed. The driveway kind of curves a bit.
I don't know.
Right where the word driveway is.
Yeah.
And then you'd have enough room for a turnaround in front of the garage before the shed.
I don't know if there are any neighbors here, but where it is now, you potentially affecting 3 neighbors. If you move it back, you're only affecting 2.
Well, let me look at where the house is for, well, actually,
Actually, 4 neighbors.
yeah, either way you go, there's neighbors. Let me see the aerial.
You know, so we got 1, 2, 3,
Oh, no,
4.
I'm not counting this one.
Yeah, so but that's,
Aerial. I mean, in this neighborhood, each way you go, there's going to be a neighbor. To be honest with you.
We'll get you, man.
The house, this one, I think it's Margaret B. Downey. I can get you the information. It's pretty close to the property line. It's an old, small house.
Uh-huh.
And I think one of the reasons was he's looking to stay away from that. And I believe that was part of it. I can get the information how close that house is to the property line.
We have anybody who'd like to speak from the room? Please address yourself, ma'am, up there at the mic.
Should I go here?
Yeah. And your name is?
I'm Joanne Judith Johnson. Are you Eric Dante?
I am, Mayor.
How do you do? You sent me a letter which cost you $6.85, and I was really shocked to receive it because I am vehemently opposed to this proposition. And I have written you a letter, which I will amend at the end. The letter is to the Zoning Board of Appeals regarding the 135 Toilsome Lane, granting of a variance. The proposed plan places a very long garage, 288 square feet. That's enough for 2 cars. Directly behind my cottage on a 34.37-foot wide portion of a very long lot, approximately 300 feet from and behind the second house on the property. This requires a very long driveway. Former owners once applied for a pool in this. Mr. Ofgant, it's had several owners, and that was denied because he would have had a 15-foot setback and a 4-foot pool. He then offered to sell me the property abutting mine, but I declined. There have been quite a few owners of this property, and the most recent one, I guess, is the one making this application. The west side of this lot, near the rear line, has a gate to the house on Post Lane, so there is access between the 2 homes, therefore foot traffic. At 300 feet by 11 feet, a driveway eliminates a grassy area for 1/3 the width of the lot, about 3,300 square feet. I believe that environmentally and aesthetically, this request should be denied, and especially for my privacy. I will be looking at this garage 365 days a year. All of the other, somewhere between 6 and 8 contiguous neighbors, are adjacent to this property, but they are part-time and minimal residents. I know the Shapiros, Jerry and Mark. Their property actually abuts mine by about, I would say, 40 feet. And it abuts this property by the other part because the fence in my yard fell down and Mr. Shapiro promptly fixed it. The other fence, he has 4 neighbors, I have 7. In any event, I think that this is totally unnecessary, and there are plenty of other places on the 300 feet to put your garage, and it doesn't have to be in my face. So I very vehemently request that you deny this. Do you have any questions you want to ask me? Because I have a copy of this for you. And it shows my modest little house, which has plenty of green space around it, by the way. And basically, The people who are on the south side of me are not going to be here because that property is in contract. And it's rumored that that property will be renovated and restored. But we all know that isn't what usually happens. So I'll pass this around, and I hope that you will consider my request. I think it's wonderful that this man wants a garage to store his car in while he goes to Germany for 9 months of the year. And I personally think 288 square feet for a garage is a pretty big garage. Thank you for listening to
Ms.
me.
Johnson, do you have any screening between you and that area?
One of the owners put up a stockade fence just on my 75 feet, and Sandy blew it down. So then the current owner didn't replace it, but he did remove all the debris which had fallen into my yard. And I went out and got a turkey wire fence, 4 feet, and to establish the line. That cost me $500. And so I have 75 feet of turkey wire fence, and the owner before this one put in little baby hedge. It's now like 4 feet high, but it's very spindly and young. So I can look right into where the kids used to play soccer there. That's the only screening.
If you move the garage forward.
I think if they want to have a garage, they should put it somewhere else, but not back at my back
Well,
door.
as you heard us before, we're suggesting to them that they do move the garage forward.
Yes.
Because you've got a lot of property between the garage and the two-story.
Well, this is a very unusual lot.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Lester Holden is the surveyor, and he did a beautiful job. But I think this is one of the most unusual lots in Southampton.
Well, it's
434 feet
very
by
thin and not
34?
very wide.
Come on.
I'm surprised they could play soccer.
Would planting additional privet or screening be a reasonable alternative?
I think
We don't know that it's, we don't know if it's an
It's the combination of it being, I mean, one of our directives is to grant the minimum variance necessary, to accomplish the purpose. So that's one reason to bring it,
Would you like me to
forward.
come back with a alternative plan that has it in line with that, I guess it's the Mrs. Johnson's marker? Lot line marker, that would be the front of the
Maybe a
garage?
little further
Maybe
south
further.
than that. You can go further south than that. Well, as I said, go up where that slight curve is there. Then it would cut the driveway by at least a third.
And please mark the driveway as pervious.
Okay, so basically you want the front of the garage at where that D is on the proposed.
Pretty close to the shed.
No, well then, the problem is you can't, because then you can't turn the car, because then you have to go to
You
the
don't, you want about 25 feet back from the shed. That would give you enough room to back the car out and make a turn. So from the back of the shed, if you went 25 feet, that would be where the front of the garage would be. That would give you enough room to have a turnaround in front of the garage.
Let me talk to the architect and
Okay.
Okay.
play with some ideas.
Yeah, all right.
Anybody else from the floor?
May I say that there are no other neighbors living in any of the houses around this, the 6 to 8 houses that abut his property. So I'm the only one who could come tonight.
Ma'am,
I will say they were all properly noticed and
ma'am, did you submit that letter to the board as well during the?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so, sir, would you like a motion to adjourn for all purposes?
yes, motion to adjourn. Oh, yes, sir.
Move it, but we adjourn this application for all purposes.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay.
I am. Rob?
Yeah.
There's no other wetlands matters on for tonight, so I am going to wish you all a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.
Merry Christmas. We never know when something's going to pop up, though, Jay.
Not expecting it.
I come through the door, you know, it's wet.
You never know. They're lining up out there.
Take care.
Have a good one. Thank you.
All right, so take care.
Go on, David.
So long, Chick.
Good night.
Always got to smile. Okay, next case, 3061, Bracken, 20 Downs Path. Saw a letter here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You also want to-
This guy objects. For the applicant.
Hi, how are you? Jean Galante for James Bracken. And he is seeking relief from section 116-11.1 in order to permit the relief for a 750 square foot detached garage to the northern front, yard setback 90 feet. It's a corner lot. Hopefully everyone's got the map and the elevations of the garage. It's a corner lot on the corner of Downs and Flying Point. And what he's looking to do is put a proposed two-car garage within the accessory setback, clearly within the principal setback, and within the accessory setback, and 90 feet off Flying Point Road. As you can see from the pictures of the garage, the roof, the trim, the shingles will all match the house, and some of the windows are being repurposed from the house, from the main residence. So it'll, and as well as the garage doors, so it will, in effect, mirror the image of the house. The driveway is going to be crushed bluestone, which is what is currently the driveway there as well.
What is the required setback? Is it 100? What's the required?
It's a corner lot, so this is because there's two front yards.
And what's required? What's not listed, what's required? Sometimes people do. Is it 150 or?
No, it's 90.
Yeah, I think it's 90,
This
isn't it?
met both setbacks. The variance relief is because it's in the front yard, even though it meets the,
That's all. I mean, that's it.
correct.
And it's conforming with respect to size?
Yes.
It meets the side yard setback. It exceeds the side yard
Meets the 30
setback.
feet.
I'm sorry?
It meets the 30 feet.
Yes.
It meets all the setbacks. It's the only difficulty is in the front yard, that's all.
Correct. Yes.
We have a letter from a neighbor.
It's more screening.
An attorney representing Roberto Boiron wants screening. Are you acquainted with that letter?
No, I'm not. But there will be a landscape plan by the time they go forward with it, in the event that they're going forward with it for the ARB. There's a hedge that's a fairly tall hedge now, I don't know, maybe 12 feet or better along Flying Point, but there's going to be an additional buffer, another probably 20, 30 feet of hedging. Right along that hedge are going to be probably green giants, and then coming up along the driveway, off Flying Point, up along that driveway will be, well, they're showing, this isn't detailed, they're just showing blobs, but there will be hedges or trees or something going up along the driveway.
well.
So there will be quite a bit of hedging.
Happily, that's what the guy's requesting, green giant.
Okay, that's,
Doesn't the house have a garage?
it does have a garage there. They are turning that into living space. It's two-car now, they're turning one bay into living space, and then they're going to put this up so that they have room for the 3 cars.
Further from the board? Anything from the floor? No problems, no problems, we have no problems.
Okay.
Should we close for your decision?
Just,
Okay, may I
I
entertain a
move to
motion?
close this application for decision.
Second?
All in favor?
Okay, thank you.
Easy, man. Okay. 12, 19, Righty, next case, 3063, Richard Del Alquilas, 227 Halsey Street. We can't read this, so we're not going to read it. Okay. Gentlemen, we have problems. We can't read this.
Too small.
Some of us are older, we can't read it.
That would have been great to have.
I'm sorry. That's, I took direction thinking that was what I need to submit. I do have, my name's Rich Delaquila, by the way. I'm the homeowner. I have large format, and I'm happy to supply those as well as discuss this. I can, I guess, get copies afterwards.
Well, we can't discuss it. We can't look at it. We
We'd
can't
like
see
the
it.
current survey, too.
That's the current survey should have been in there. I pulled it from the building office.
No, with the survey with the proposed on it. The survey that's in there shows the existing, not the proposed.
Can I ask a question? Ryan's helper there, okay.
Yeah.
Is it acceptable for the purposes of discussion going forward, if not tonight at a future meeting, to use an architectural site plan? I'm just thinking in terms of cost, because I don't want to see Richard, particularly on proposed improvements that are not related to existing conditions, and we have existing conditions documented on that survey that have not changed since then. It's more a point of clarification on your preferences
Can you
for that.
plot on the primary setbacks and second, and accessory setback lines on the property?
Yes.
All right, now we can see what you're doing, what you're asking for. Sure.
Yeah. And I apologize in advance. I went to the building office a couple of times over the past 2 months and sat down with Tin and showed him exactly what I had and confirmed. And I apologize if I.
He has very good vision, I think. The font here is like, I don't know, -1 or something.
Younger than we are.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that. I'll be happy to get larger format.
All right.
drawings.
Sorry you had to come this way for all of this. But. So is there anything else we require so they don't make any false steps?
Well, just as long as we're able to read it.
Right. We have the.
It goes into the demo.
You have the C of O.
We have the dimensions of
The plans are pretty unreadable, too, you know, so.
the pyramid violation. We have the gross cubic feet and all of that.
Yeah, everything should be printed on there. Yes, sir.
The house violates the sky plane as well?
No.
No.
No, that's good.
No violation.
It's the existing condition?
It is. Yes. I have it on A201.
Oh, yes, sorry, it does. That's
front?
right, the front elevation, a small portion in the corner, an existing condition that is unimpacted by what we're proposing.
Oh, it's an existing.
That's an existing
Exactly, yeah,
condition, yes.
everything this side of the line is existing.
When it comes to the garage building,
Yes, sir.
if you could provide a calculation of the cubic footage that's above the sky plane, that's what the board, it
Okay.
doesn't appear to be
Happy to.
on the plans that you have.
I don't know about the rest of the board, but I'm not real big on sky plane violations of garages, so I don't know if you want to keep that in mind at least.
Okay.
In terms of process, is that something when we do resubmit, that it's worthwhile for us to discuss it, or, because I think there's a logic to it in that case. It's an architectural question, whether one looks better with the violation or, because we can make it work without the violation in a very easy way.
Go ahead.
I'd
say so.
Okay.
Be happy to. Yeah.
When you say new roof over pre-existing non-conforming dwelling to the south side yard setback, so there's roof but no house?
No, it's a second floor addition up here and an expanded roof. So the existing portion of the house is here, and this is the addition of the second floor, and the roof over that.
It's a new roof.
So that's
I mean,
a whole.
it's a new
So what are you
structure.
asking for there?
Which one? It's really part of the FAR ask.
Okay.
Is that a southern elevation?
This
Which
would
southern
be-
elevation here. So it's this part on the southern elevation, this part on the northern elevation.
Anything further come to mind with us? We can tell them?
This house has not been there that long. I assume that you're not the original owner?
No, sir, I bought it from the folks, I think it was a family that might have developed it. It was built in 2007 or 2008.
Right down the street.
Okay, so, as I think you're aware then, it was on the market for a few years, and my wife and I purchased it in 2012. I mean, I don't know if it's helpful, but I'd be happy just to, I wanted to come out here personally, and I'm happy to give some background if it's helpful. I've spent a lot of time myself just meeting with the building department, trying to think this through, and out of
what they
respect
came
for your
here for.
time as well.
Right.
Because there's a lot of, there's obviously a lot of pieces, and I think the numbers, are what they are. But at the end of the day, what we're really trying to do is add 1 bedroom and 1 bathroom to the property. And we're trying to do it in a manner that is as minimally disruptive to the existing conditions as possible, while maintaining what I believe is the spirit of the village and the code and everything else. My wife and I bought this house in 2012, and bought it to keep for a long time. And with any luck, our kids are going to have it one day. So, and when we did make the purchase, there were some considerations that we had looked at the time. When the house was built, the GFA was higher than it is today. We had a growing family. We had 1 child who was 1.5 when we bought it. We now have 2 children. I have aging parents, and we use it a lot. We spend a lot of time out here. Our plan is to be out here. And so what's basically happened is I think because the house, if I understand it correctly, was an existing condition that was, I guess, technically not a new house, but they basically built a new house preserving a piece of the old house, which is probably why some of the setbacks were non-conforming. But the house, to my understanding, was conforming at the time it was built. Some changes have happened, in the code. And so there are certain conditions, certain elements of the existing conditions are non-conforming. And we've been looking at it, and Ryan's been working closely with us for the last few years, trying to figure out, when the resources are available to do this, how can we do it in a way that's as less disruptive as possible, that's all. And so, this, I think, a couple of the major features of this were, we're trying not to touch the footprint of the house. So what's being proposed on the second floor is really just extending out over existing wall and elevation, not touching any of the foundation on the house. When we purchased the house, we were aware of the fact that a new septic system had been put in at the time of the construction, as I think you may be aware, which was already had capacity for additional bedrooms in it. And so we're trying not to do anything that would disrupt the existing septic system. So that the 2 things we want to accomplish is getting an extra bedroom and bathroom on the second floor. We can also be on the same level with our children, creating a little bit of optionality for my parents to be able to sleep in a room on the first floor. And then we wanted to put a garage on there. And the GFA that we're asking for, the number is actually, I think, a bit larger than what we're considering within the context of the house. And the reason for that is, if I understand it, we're permitted to put a garage on the property now up to 520 square feet, I believe, within our zoning. On the house today, there's an existing, I don't know if you'd call it a pool house or a pool shed. It's not, it's not a big, massive facility, but it has a bathroom in it. And what we were trying to do, we could put another garage right next to it and leave that in place. What we were trying to do was deal with massing and not having too much mass on the property. So our proposal was, if we put a garage on the property, and we would effectively just put a toilet, in one little corner of that garage, so there'd just be a bathroom out there. We don't really need a pool house or living space out there. The main thing we want is place to park vehicles, store bicycles, surfboards, all that good stuff. And we'd love to preserve the ability to keep a toilet out, in the yard with the pool. All the plumbing's there. And so anyway, because that toilet is in the garage, we included the 504 square feet for the total garage in the GFA, Because I think that, my understanding is, I don't know what the interpretation is exactly, my understanding is if that toilet's in the garage, all of a sudden that becomes an accessory structure instead of a garage. It wouldn't have heat. The existing one doesn't have heat.
I don't think, I mean,
No, it's,
that's not
the
the case.
garage is an accessory structure. They're all accessory structures.
But there's an exception to the GFA for a garage.
Correct.
Right? Which I think for my property, or our zoning, I believe it's 520 square feet. And so when I spoke to Tin, I think we want to make sure we were conservative and discuss it with you guys, but the addition of having that toilet in the corner of the garage compromises the exception for a garage.
Yeah, I don't think it, I think if I understand you correctly, you're including the entire
square footage
GFA of the garage
Yes,
because it has the toilet, and I don't know that you need to do that.
That's up to, I'll have to check with building on that.
And without that, you wouldn't be over.
Without that, we'd be over, but we'd only be over by, we'd be, I think it's effectively 300 square feet more than the existing condition.
Well, I mean, but you're over that now with 299. That's with the calculation. If the garage were exempted, you would be not over it? Is it under it?
No, I think we're over.
Oh, so you're over it by 300
without the garage. Correct.
Also, you have the garage 5.5 feet from the property line.
That was the other variance we're requesting. The reason for that was that there's an existing driveway on the south side of the property, based on where the house is sited.
Yeah.
And so we were asking for relief there so that it could line up as best as possible with the existing driveway, and so that the car could be maneuvered around the back of the house into that garage.
So I think it would be a good idea to just show us your GFA calculations, existing, compared to current zoning code and proposed and where, so we understand the GFA variances.
He has them. SP 100? No?
You can read that?
Well, yeah, that I can, because it's 0.75 font.
SP 100.
See?
Yeah. Right down here.
Then what's the distance from the front of the garage to the, I guess it's the deck you have in the back?
If you bear with me for just a
In
second,
other words, I
we'll tell you.
don't know if you need that 5 feet. I think you could shift that garage
It's about
towards the
30 feet.
pool and still be able to have enough room to back out, maybe have a turnaround and come out of that garage.
It's about 30 feet. The other thing that shifting it affords is a drop zone, or at least a modest drop zone in this area. I mean, the garage door is centered on this gable, so in fact, even already it is offset. As you come in, you have to make a turn there.
Yeah.
Obviously, the further we shift this way, the more this encroaches on the yard, which is what we're trying to avoid without really paving so much of the backyard. So, we're kind of very conscious of what the compromise is, but...
Well, everybody wants that.
Understood.
Everybody wants to push it off into where you need a variance rather than use up your spot where you can put it.
Yeah, no, I mean...
the corollary to that is that, one of the things about the neighboring property is that the house over here is relatively close down here, and so we're hoping that by...
This house is just under 4 feet off of the property line. Yeah.
That we might be able to introduce some screening in here to help soften that relationship, which is already, this is non-conforming by 6 inches or something. It's a very modest number. I think the setback is 16 feet. The house is 15.4 or something along those lines. And I ideally offset that with some benefit back here. I just mentioned that, we talked about the sky plane issue on the garage. It's worthwhile pointing out that the logic for that is just so that the gable continues through on the back end. That violation occurs right back here. So this gable from this elevation could very easily become a hip and would solve the sky plane issue.
Yeah.
Right there?
That could be a hip.
And unquestionably, it would conform. It's just a question of whether, does it look better and more consistent this way? It's no benefit to the homeowners because they don't see that elevation. It's really probably more benefit to the people on the other side. So I don't think there's any objection to doing it. It's really whether one is better, 6 dozen one way, or 6 one way, half a dozen the other.
And I don't know if it's a consideration, but after we purchased the property, one thing we did do, there were a bunch of dead trees. We've had neighbors have trees come into our yard, and we had some that we were concerned about going into theirs. So this was all pulled out, and it's been probably 7 years now. We planted 30 for 5 arborvitae along here that have now, grown there. I don't know what the height is, but they were 6 feet when we put them in. They're probably 15 or 20 feet now, just to provide screening for the neighbors and for ourselves.
And food for the deer.
And food for the deer. I don't know if that's helpful or relevant. I've never done this before, so.
Well, pretty good. Anyway, anything further from the board? From the floor, anybody want to address this? Okay, so that you have some things you're going to resubmit to us, correct?
Yes, sir. I'll get you much larger copies of everything.
Okay, would you like us to adjourn for all purposes
I
then?
just have one
Oh,
more
I'm sorry.
question.
Go ahead.
The garage that's there now, is that going to stay?
No, so, well, the pool shed structure that's marked
No, I
on this?
mean the garage on the other side of the house.
That's not a garage. It may be labeled, sir, as on the survey as a garage. It's not a garage. It's a pool house, and the plan was
Yeah,
to.
that's back here. I'm talking about on the other side of the house.
The one that shows 2 cars.
One that shows 2 cars.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. This is not existing. This was just
Proposed
proposed
parking.
parking. Yeah.
All right, so that's not going, that's not a garage.
No
Correct.
structure.
No structure.
No structure. That's right. Yes.
They should be bigger, we should also be able to read them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the pool house that you were referring to in the back, that's staying?
That would be removed.
No,
That's being removed?
The
Okay.
thought was to address this, to make a compromise on not having, my neighbors here have 2 accessory structures on the property. I think they have a separate pool house and a garage. And we were just trying to keep the massing down.
The house is really oriented to the south of the property.
It is.
I'm wondering, why did they do that?
The only thing I can think of is that it was an existing foundation that they were reusing.
That they used?
Yeah.
It steps up. This is a 1-story space here, and it steps up along this line to a 2-story space. I don't know whether that was in an effort to comply with the pyramid regulations or not, but
I don't recall just what was there before, to tell you the truth.
I've tried to figure that out, and I've tried to go find pictures.
There's been a whole lot of changes on Halsey Street, especially down that end,
Yeah.
over the years.
Yeah. No, we were, when we purchased, we were one of the newer houses on the street, and now we're the cottage. Yeah.
Well, you got the house on the corner, that's new.
Yeah.
one
This
to the
is
north.
new.
You got the house on the corner, on the other corner,
Yep.
on White Street, that's new.
The one across the street from me on White Street
Yeah,
is new.
that's new.
I think I counted at one point, it's probably 10 plus houses on Halsey Street in the last 6 or
There's
7
another
years.
one right across from that house.
Yeah,
The one next to us is partially new.
yeah.
There had been a house there before.
You know the neighborhood well.
Gold Coast.
I've lived there 55 years, I know it well.
Well, I'm hoping we can say the same in another 47.
A lot of times you got a water view too, right?
You got a water view?
Water tower.
Got the water tower, yeah.
Yeah, we were surprised to find that water tower after we pulled the trees down in the backyard. My wife said they built a water tower there.
They built it overnight,
I think
right?
it was there before us. Yeah. So, I don't know if there's anything else I can provide. Like I said, I wanted to come out and just give you guys some background on the
Right.
situation, what we're trying to accomplish, that's all.
If that garage can move a little bit more and still be able to have a functional driveway there,
take a look at it, for sure.
Where did you want to move it?
well, it's got 5 feet, so
From the south?
No, he's 5 feet off, he needs a variance. He's
Right.
5 feet off the line. If he can shift it towards the
Okay.
pool and increase that setback,
Right.
It's an improvement
yeah.
for us.
Take a look at that.
So the second-story addition is over the existing footprint. It's not
Yes.
expanding the house in any way.
That's correct. I think, yeah.
It's an expansion of floor area and massing, but not in footprint.
We looked at other ways we could try to get, because they kept, I believe, the old house in the first floor, it's a rather large first floor. And so we looked at other ways to try and get the GFA down to still accomplish the objective, and by the time we ended up doing it, we were basically rebuilding the house, and that's what we're trying to avoid doing. We're trying to be, it's a perfectly fine house. We want to keep as much of what's there as we can. So.
Okay, well, we look forward to seeing your plans and such.
Okay, so we'll send you larger format, 8 copies.
And incorporate revisions in that resubmission.
Right.
Right.
Okay, and would the process then be to get on the calendar for a follow-up meeting?
January.
You're on, I guess.
What is the
You're
time?
already on.
Okay, yeah.
You don't have to re-advertise or anything. No.
No, but I'm on, and we were just.
Fourth Thursday?
But what is the deadline for submission? Just so we're timing.
Get it in by the
3
work session.
Okay.
The meeting is January 23rd. The work session will be 9 days before that, or what's 9 days before 23rd, be the 14th.
I won't eat that.
Get it in by the 14th, they may have a chance to look at it, before the.
Are you here in January? Excuse me.
Yeah.
Sir, are you here in January?
Yes.
Okay.
If we needed, I may be traveling on the 23rd. If we needed to, could we come in February if we sent notice to you guys?
Sure, a letter seeking an adjournment is a nice...
We would absolutely get that, as we heard tonight. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Do you need anything else from me?
Okay. Close that.
We're gonna...
I move we close, we don't close, I move we adjourn this application for all purposes.
Thank you.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, 306471 Walnut
Worked out well.
Street. Yeah, they're nice fellows.
We got a chance to.
Kick it around to help them, yeah, really. Which is which?
For the application, Gilbert G. Flanagan, 21 South Main Street, Southampton. This is the last case on the calendar. I seem to be famous for some of those. I'll try to make it as quick as I can.
Thank you. Okay.
I think what I'd start off by saying is what this application doesn't involve, because there are certain setbacks that we're requesting. It does not involve lot coverage relief, doesn't involve GFA relief, does not involve any pyramid law relief, and it does not involve any setback relief from any of the adjoining neighbors. The problem exists in that the property is a long, narrow, relatively long and narrow lot that's a corner lot fronting on Pine Street and Walnut Street. And as I pointed out in the write-up to the application, if you look at it from north to south, it actually has a negative building envelope, so it's very well constrained by the existing regulations and the existing improvements. I did a research of the... You need some copies of something? I took a look at the village's records, and there is very little zoning activity on this property. In fact, the only previous variance application was something I handled in 2012, which was withdrawn without prejudice, without even being heard, because that involved a contract vendee, and that transaction did not proceed. So this is a virgin piece of property in terms of variance relief.
Did you do something on this a long time ago?
Yeah, you did. In 2012, that we filed an
It
application.
was before then, wasn't it?
No. According to the card that I looked at in the village building department, that was...
Looking at the people who voted on it, and then we still had Dr. Corman, we still had Sam Campbell.
That's what I was going to bring up.
That I don't remember, because I didn't show up on the village's card, which is unusual. Oh,
Granted,
maybe, what are you, you're looking at
Or is this for something else?
That's John's application.
property,
That's
okay.
John's application.
Only one.
Okay.
That's John's
So this
application.
is not a contract vendee situation?
No, this is a property owner, and she's not a contract vendee. Now that Mr. Guider mentioned it, one of the things I did submit before the work session was, there were several things. One is a sampling of other variances that have been issued in the immediate neighborhood. Another thing I'd submitted was an analysis of how many swimming pools are in the immediate area. And also there were aerial photographs showing the development of the subject area. Just like to mention a couple of what I consider to be relevant considerations. You'll note that with respect to Pine Street, while we're requesting dimensional setback relief, we're not requesting front yard relief because none of the activity we're proposing on Pine Street is in the definitional front yard. And this board has traditionally made a distinction between building in the front yard, which means you're between the house and the street, versus a setback relief. So in the spirit of the code, actually, we're not in the front yard with the swimming pool or the pool house that we're proposing. And I think that's important. And furthermore, nothing that we're proposing to construct is any closer to the street than the existing house, which by definition works. Let's see, I gotta see if I can read my writing here.
So the lot is 60 feet wide?
Yeah, that's why I say if you look at it, it actually has a negative, in terms of, it has a negative building envelope. When you go the other way, it does have a building envelope, but north to south, it's
It shows a septic system or a cesspool underneath where the new pool house is going to be, so I
Yeah,
assume
that's-
you're getting a whole new septic system?
Yeah, one of the things we're going to do is we're going to install an IA system, which I think is one of the things I was going to point out, which would be a benefit. We would be replacing all of those systems. And I know that Mr. Davini often asks about fuel tanks, and I verified that this property is serviced by natural gas from the street, so there were no buried tanks to worry about.
I haven't asked that question in years. I don't know.
Yeah, well,
I don't know if there are any more left.
There's a few, but I thought I'd allay your fears on this one. I can also note, as the site plan that I submitted shows, that we would be providing 3 off-street parking spaces, 2 in the proposed garage and 2 in the proposed garage and 1 in the street. 2 the other way around, sorry. 1 in the garage, 2 in the street, and they meet the requirement for up to 4 bedrooms. So we would not, and those parking spaces are in a conforming location. They meet the 5-foot setbacks that are required by the code. I'm sure you've all visited the property, and I submitted photographs of the area. This property is virtually entirely screened from the street. If you notice, there must be 20-foot tall arborvitae that run along Pine Street. The only break in that is the access where the access to the existing parking area is. Similarly, I've submitted some pictures showing the south entrance to the building. We requested a small variance to put a vestibule where the front door is for safety and environmental reasons. If you look at the interior photographs I submitted of that particular construction, the stairs to the second floor are right inside the front door, and you need a little bit of protection before you get in and go up the stairs. And again, that vestibule would be built over an existing brick patio area. We heard at the beginning of the meeting, the gentleman talked about the balancing test, and it's important to remember that this is a balancing test between the benefit to the applicant against any detriment that might occur to the community and the neighborhood. And just to touch on those briefly, I will do that very shortly. I would submit there's no substantial change in the character of the neighborhood. That's one of the reasons I submitted the photographs showing swimming pools and certain other cases where variances have been issued. There's no feasible way to obviate the difficulty given the fact that the lot is the size and shape that it is, and given the fact that the existing improvements are located on it. And I would
Where are they putting the pool equipment?
in the pool house / garage. Yeah.
It'll be inside.
It'll be inside. And as you can see, when we calculated the GFA, we calculated towards the GFA the part that's pool house, but not the part that's garage, which is exempt under the code. it bears repeating that none of the variance relief we're requesting has anything to do with the neighbors either to the west, including Mr. Obst, and the property to the north, which is the church building. Now, as
Can I
far-
ask you about the porch that abuts the pool?
Yeah, in fact, I'm glad you did. And we have some pictures to show that it would be a covered porch with a patio that's at grade. And I know there are quite often questions about what happens if you step out of the house and go right down the stairs. It's at grade. In fact, Lisa Zaloga, who's the architect, has some pictures that show something similar to what that would look like. So it would be the same as if there was no roof and you walked out onto a patio at grade, as far as safety is concerned.
The whole porch is at grade? Is that what you said?
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly. In fact, if you look at some of the plans we submitted, you'll see in the profiles in the cross-section, you'll see that construction is at grade. Again, this is an example, it's obviously.
There's another one, just like the other one.
When we talk about substantiality, I'll mention that if you look at setbacks relative to lot size, the variance relief is quite a bit less than if you look at setback for the zoning. This is somewhat unusual because this is an MF20 zone, which has very, very large setbacks. Now, you may remember a couple of months ago, I had an application for a property on Layton Avenue, and that situation came up. Again, it was this expansion of a single-family house in an MF20 zone. I think the front yard setback is 50 feet, which isn't, nobody conforms to that I'm aware of in the MF20 zone, which this is also. In fact, the setback for the garage would be 76% conforming. The pool would be 78% conforming. So when you look at lot size, in terms of the scale of the project with the lot, it's not that substantial, I would submit.
In other words, this porch patio is going to look like
Yeah,
that.
I thought it was in already.
Right, so you won't go down a set of stairs and fall into the pool if you've had a couple of cocktails.
It could slip, though.
You could slip, I suppose. We put non-skid on the top of it. Okay, I would submit there'd be no adverse environmental impacts. In fact, I mentioned that we're going to be putting in an IA system, which is, as you know, the best system that you can possibly put in now. And
Is that required there, sir?
it may be required here, but even before this happened, when I first started talking about it with my client, she agreed to put it in. So, and that's certainly a benefit. I don't know how old these systems are, but I suspect they're pretty old.
Do you have a drawing showing where this new septic is supposed to go? I mean, from my understanding that there are certain setbacks from the pool that the septic has to meet, and from lot lines,
I can certainly get that for you.
just to make sure that there's a conforming location left to put the septic in.
I know that they looked at it, and there is room for it, but I'll have it shown.
Okay, yeah, because I know with some of the older systems, we're supposed to have 20 feet between the pool and the leaching galleys. I don't know if it's the same for these IA systems or not. Leaves you pretty tight there on Pine Street, so.
Because there is a fair amount of room, but we'll show that in the next submission. I'm assuming we'll be back to you next month, so I'll get that for you. We did have the existing systems located by a company, and I think I submitted the information from that company, which provided it where it's now shown on the survey. So with that, if you have any questions, I also have Lisa Zaloga here if you have any technical architectural questions, which I'm too stupid to answer.
Is there anything that's being removed from this property?
Yeah, there's an existing shed that's in the northwest corner of the property, and that's going to be removed. So that'll reduce that. That was earlier map that had it.
I see it.
Yep.
Frame shed is in the corner of the garage. So
Right,
that's being removed.
that's going to be removed, yeah, and that would, obviously, that would eliminate a nonconformity, so that's a benefit.
Did the pool on the corner of Meeting House and Pine, did that require variance?
If it did, I would have given you something on it, because I did, I'm not sure. The best analysis I made, I got every variance that was in the location. That may have pre-existed, I really don't know. but it would constitute part of the character of the general neighborhood, so that, to that extent, it would be relevant. There are quite a few pools. I was surprised when I looked at the aerial photographs and went to the village. I was surprised at how many there are in this area. There were quite a few of them. So if I-
Okay, anything else from the board? The floor. Sir, please stand up, introduce yourself.
Get nervous, Gil.
I'm not nervous. Who, me? What, me worry?
Merry Christmas to the board. My name is John Wolf, and I live at 27 Rogers Avenue. We own the home next door to this applicant, 65 Walnut Street. We've owned it for 50 years. My wife, 55 years married. And last time I was before this board, Dr. No was sitting in the chairman's seat, and I believe you're the only one that was on the board. Not to pick your age, but just saying. Okay?
Thank you, John.
So I have a couple of concerns. I'll start with the front, the setback. First off, I'd like to know, what is the front yard? Is it Pine Street or is it Walnut Street? That's a question I want to know because...
Both.
Both. On a corner lot, I was just going to get to that. On a corner lot, it's both.
Right.
So it becomes difficult looking for a variance to get setbacks on your front yard. And front yard really should be Walnut Street, personally, because that's where the front door is, and the backyard is where the back door is on the north side of the property. And I've lived there personally for over, well, I grew up right across the street on Pine Street, 27 Pine Street, and lived there for 25 years. And that was since 45, for 25 years. So I know the neighborhood, and I know that house long before anybody knew that house. The Malones lived upstairs, and the Willows lived downstairs. It was a two-family house back in the day. Is that a one-family home, Gil, or is that a two-family home?
Still has-
By zoning? What is it designated at in zoning?
Family.
It is registered as a two-family?
Yep, the CO that I submitted shows it's a two-family house.
Okay, because it is multifamily zoning,
Yes.
and that's going to be my concern when it comes to the pool. I'm coming up with that shortly, but the front yard setback bothers me right away quick. For anything from the street line, when you give a variance to the front yard, I could not get one on 27 Rogers Avenue. I want to just put a little roof over my porch so I can get in without raining. I couldn't get that back in Dr. No's day.
She gone.
I know, God love her. But I fought her hard.
LW, you know.
Just to the,
Dr.
to
Coleman
that
was a
point.
good person, and she was very smart.
Very smart.
Very smart. And I agreed with her in many ways, and I disagreed too, but she was very smart. And she was out for the village's good and the good of the neighbors.
To John's
Can't say I
point,
like what I
Lisa,
saw happen in her house right
show
now,
us-
but
Can you show us
House there now.
what your front yard variance would how it would appear juxtaposed with the other houses on Walnut?
Okay.
You know, like a streetscape.
well, if you take a look at the lineup, that you just walk down the street, you can see it. They're going to move much closer to the street with this front. I have several issues. The front proposal for the addition in the front bothers me because it's staying outside the line of the neighborhood, number one. The second problem I have is that addition, I believe on this thing as I'm reading, is a covered porch on the second floor. Pat, I call it, that's been a contention for us forever. There's been like parties going on there many, many times late at night on the second floor apartment. They would sit out on the back. And I have a two-family home that we've rented for years. And they always complained about the noise, they couldn't sleep. So that becomes an issue. If they're going to put a roof on that, that means they're going to stay out there even later, especially in bad conditions, meaning rain or, whatever.
The roof isn't over the second floor, it's down on the first.
Oh, it's not going to be on that roof line there, on that
not. It's
porch?
You're talking about the second floor
Yeah, it
deck
shows it
that's
here
on the back.
on your,
No, the porch is on the ground.
yeah, what does this say here on your,
Can we address the board and introduce ourselves?
This is the logo, I'm the architect.
sorry, Lisa.
It's okay.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
So I'm looking at this proposed.
This is the existing roof deck that you're referring to. This
Right,
is a
but what does
porch
this
at
say,
grade.
what does this say right here about a covered roof?
See this part right here? See this rectangle here?
Yes, I see the 8-foot.
That's the porch. That's on the ground.
Okay.
One story, right.
The one-story addition, but it says here, what did it say? One-story addition front yard, I got that, one-story setback.
See, sir, this is your roof deck that you're referring to?
Oh, okay, so there's not going to be a roof over
No,
this?
no,
Oh,
this
well, that
is-
would really
this is
bother
the
me.
porch
Oh, okay,
on
I see
the
what you're
ground.
saying, I see what you're saying now. Okay, fine, then I misunderstood
No
that.
problem.
I didn't
I just wanted to help.
add that, thank you.
Sorry, no problem.
And then, of course, getting to the pool, everybody wants a pool. And I wouldn't mind putting a pool in back of 65 Walnut Street, but it's a problem. You know, neighbors, I got a neighbor that's with me tonight, Steve, he sits right next to me on Walnut Street to the west, and it's a tight community, the lots are very narrow, and you can hear somebody talking from house to house inside. And this is going to be a rental, without a doubt. It's been expressed to my neighbor that she's going to go for a summer rental. And the rental laws have changed now. I'm worrying about Airbnbs coming in, and what am I going to deal with when there's a pool there? Now, I understand everybody's got a right for a pool if you have the property to build the pool. But I don't believe that the right should be there, because I think the front yard should be Walnut Street. And I realize it can be both sides, but and that's why they locked us out from being to the west without the variance for a side yard variance. They left it up to you guys and took it off the village. And if you look at the variance they're asking for, how many feet, I think it's pretty big for that variance. I know you're not going to say it.
Would it make you feel better if that were moved, say, 5 feet away from your property line?
I think you're missing my point, sir. My point is, I'm concerned about what's going to happen with the noise of the pool itself. I'm concerned about building a pool on that property. That's a rental two-family home.
Yeah.
What are we building here? Then I'm going to come to you and ask for a variance to put a pool in my backyard. And he's going to ask to put a pool in his backyard. You know, it's Pandora's box. You can see it coming. I know where the houses have the pools, all around the neighborhood. I understand. It's not an 8-foot by 10-foot pool, a hot tub or a lap pool. It's a long pool, but I think we're asking for trouble here with the noise factor. My tenants have been very good tenants through the village for the longest time since Carol and I've owned that property, and we've never had a problem. So I'm taking a problem with the fact they're going to put a pool in to begin with, but I understand they can put a pool in if it hits the right parameters. But I mean, you're the people in charge of giving them that variance. I couldn't get a variance on Rogers Avenue, and I want to do something over there because I didn't have the setback. So I'm just asking, is this what it's coming to today or not?
No, well, to your point, nobody on Walnut Street on your side of the street has a pool.
No, not one. There is on Cameron Street backing right up to us, and there is across the street, which used to be Cullum Sign's house, who sold to whoever the guy is, and he built a pool over there just recently. And there's a pool also on the house you're talking about, Mia, what you call it, on Pine and Meeting House Lane. And I think they got a variance for that pool, if I remember correctly. I've lived there all my life.
The house on the corner?
Yeah, Mia, you know the name of it.
One that was a B&B or?
No, they've never had a B&B there.
Yeah,
actually, the people before them, I think, were doing Airbnb. Not when they bought it, which was about 10 years ago.
Yeah. It was longer ago.
You got
than
a
that.
good memory, Kevin. So I take some exceptions with, you know, especially that front yard thing and that pool thing. I don't mind so much them putting a porch in the back and a patio and a place to sit. Everybody needs space, you know. But this is a very small lot, narrow. I shouldn't say it's small, it's narrow. It's elongated. And that seems to be the problem. And they're right adjacent to the back door of my tenants. And I've maintained that property for 50 years, nicely, and paid taxes on it. And I just want to make certain that it's going to be maintained in the same way next door.
Do you have any objection to the garage? Is that a problem at all, the garage?
All right. There used to be a garage there. They took it down back 20, 25 years. When they took it down, the first Southampton jail was in his backyard. I wanted to move that jail to the Historic Society. And I had it all set up with Keene, you know, Mr. Keene, but we just couldn't get the job done. And that's when I took the garage down, and we had a perfect way to take that brick building out to Pine Street and take it over to the museum. Couldn't get it done. But there was a garage there, they tore that down. It fell down, then they tore it down. There was no maintenance ever done on that property. I can tell you, I've lived here all my life, so, whatever. And this woman seems to be nice. She's done a lot of plantings, and I've only met her one time, and that was this past fall when I decided to trim some trees on our side of the property. She came over and wanted to know what I was doing, and I explained it. It would have been nice for her to come to me and ask about this and get my opinion before we got this far. Like I said, the last time I was here was when Dr. Corman was sitting in the chair, and I don't like to come to these meetings. Thank you.
This still is a two-family house.
Could I address that? One of the things my client's willing to do is to make it a one-family house. She's willing to give up the two-family. I was going to mention that a little later on. So make it. The other thing I just want to mention, John is concerned about the pool next to him. We actually have a greater setback than the code requires from him. The side and rear yard setback for a pool is 20 feet. We're more than 20 feet away from his property lines. The only people who are directly affected by the variance are the people across the street. And in the file I initially submitted, one of the neighbors, actually who was directly across the street from where this activity would go on, the pool house and the pool garage, wrote a letter in support of the application. So that should be noted. But it's important to note from John's perspective, and I understand what he's saying, but that we conform. We don't need relief from him, from his
I'm not
property
looking
owner.
relief from me.
No, what I'm saying.
I realize what you've done. You put the line against the village. That's where I was. Okay.
And by the way, there is.
You will too.
I will.
According to our research, there is a pool on the south side of Walnut Street, the second lot in from Pine Street.
Anybody else? From the floor. Well, what is your pleasure, folks?
I don't think we need any more information, do we? We got all the information we're going to
Well, we need the septic information.
get. It's septic, all right, we need, that's right.
You leave it
You need
open,
it- you
subject
need
to
the
submission of
streetscape.
that information. You sometimes do that.
Yes.
Yeah,
Close it subject to
streetscape,
that
you
submission.
know.
You can close it, subject to that.
I have one more question.
I gotta stand over here.
The garage. Parking. I believe Gil said there's going to be
3 spaces,
3 spaces.
One in the garage.
One in the garage,
2 in the street.
2 in the driveway.
2 in the driveway. 2 in the
2 in the
driveway.
driveway? How long is the driveway?
Shows 26 feet from the property line to the front of the garage.
26 feet.
You have to have a
So
5-foot setback.
what is the property from the village line to the garage? It's not 26 feet.
No, that's what it is, 26.6 feet, according to the survey.
From the property.
From the property
From the property
line
line to the garage door.
to the garage.
Okay. So you can get 3 cars.
Yeah, just
So they're all going to line up like soldiers. So what's that going to work like?
No,
one
Not
inside, two
exactly.
outside.
There's 2 next to each other.
Oh,
2
And
next to each
how do you get out if you're the front?
that's what I'm on.
front
Pine
single
Street,
car?
I know it's a one-way street now, but it's still, you know, I kind of wondered.
One of the cars.
You know, we've always been concerned about parking in the village. People like building these big houses and putting all these bedrooms, they don't have any place to park. And I see it all over the village, and you guys know it. So parking could be a problem before this is over anyway, so.
Just so
He's
you
got
know, the
parking.
village does allow, but talk to the building department, that the village does allow 1 car to be parked behind another.
I know, but it's a pain in the neck.
Right, but it's allowed, and we conform, and we meet the setbacks, so that we don't need any parking variances or relief.
Is there a difference between a 2-story house and a 1-story, a 2-family house and a 1-family house relative to parking?
No, it just goes on the number of bedrooms.
But we're going to give up the 2-family
We're
anyway.
giving up the 2. And if you want to make that a condition, you can make that a condition, if you decide that favorably.
Just for the board's information, this is a survey of this property from 1977. And you can see that at one point in time, in 1977. I have no idea. John may know when it was taken off. There was a porch on the whole front of this house that was bigger. It's bigger than what we're proposing for. Basically, right now, if you open the door, it almost hits the first tread, the first riser. So we're just trying to get the front door a little bit out so that you can actually open the door and not have to jump over the stairs to get into the house. That's the purpose of that front entry there. And then, Mark, you asked me for a streetscape. Did you want a survey streetscape to see setbacks, or did you want a visual streetscape to see?
Setbacks of all the houses on that.
So you want me to do like a composite map of a bunch of surveys to see what all the setbacks are from the?
I mean, I'm just concerned, somebody else may be concerned about others, but I'm just concerned about the north side of Walnut Street.
Okay.
So how
Okay,
that's.
but I just wanted to make sure you wanted a survey, a flat thing, not a pictorial.
Yeah, not a picture.
Okay. Yeah, so just so the board knows, there was, in fact, at one point in time, a porch that went the entire length of that, and it's bigger than what we're proposing.
You want to leave it open, or you want to close it pending what we hear about the streetscape and the septic?
Mr. Kurz, do you have any opinions?
It's up to the board, however they'd like to do.
Want to close it, subject to submission of material on the septic
And the streetscape.
and the streetscape?
Yeah.
Is there a motion to that?
I move that
effect?
we close it, subject to the submission of the septic system and the streetscape.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Are we done?
We're done. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting of December 19th?
I move we adjourn the meeting of December 19, 2019.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Aye. Done.